What's going on, Seaport? It's Pacman Jones with Savannah Seaport News. Yeah, I haven't seen y'all in a while. Haven't really been doing a lot. But while I was away, I noticed that, people make more content about Savannah now, ever since the whole Quando Rondo shit with Lil Tim and King Vaughn, and most recently, Quando Rondo got into some stuff in Los Angeles, but that's a whole nother story. But while I was away, I seen a guy. He did a video about Savannah, and not just about Savannah, but about the rolling 60s and Savannah, and obviously a Crip gang. But I'm gonna let y'all watch it and see if you think this is accurate. I'm gonna put my commentary in it while it's playing, but I just want to see, is this really accurate? So let's hit it off.
Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. For this episode, we head down to the wildest place that you've never heard of. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. You can also follow the Instagram page as well. So let's get into it. When most people think of Georgia, Atlanta is the only place that comes to mind. But realistically, Atlanta is not in Georgia. Okay, obviously it's located in Georgia, but it's so different than the rest of the state that it's really its own thing. While Atlanta is thriving, fast-paced in a business empire, the rest of Georgia is not so much. Literally anything outside of the Atlanta circle is country, poor, and lacking in economic development. And there's no city that personifies that more than Savannah, Georgia. The city is located all the way on the east end of the state, right next to the ocean. But it's definitely not a beach paradise, so in order for it to make sense, let's dive into the history. During the 1900s to 1920s, Savannah was a successful industrial city, but since then it has declined in manufacturing and somehow tourism is the main source of employment. I definitely had to double check that after I read it. Like, what? Who would spend their hard-earned money to visit Savannah, Georgia? Ew. Well, apparently
A lot of tourists, white folks, SCAD students, pretty much.
every year, thousands of people come to see the Spanish architecture. Look, I know people have different interests, but how bored do you have to be to go travel to see some architecture? But in all seriousness, Savannah is kind of a decent place. It's somewhere in between the awfulness of Detroit or San Bernardino and the beauty of Seattle and San Diego. But it's definitely not a place that you want to mess around in. The average income in Savannah is only $24,000 a year. That wouldn't even cover your gas money.
Yeah, I mean, Savannah itself is alright. I moved from Savannah. I don't stay in Savannah no more, by the way. The story behind that, I'll let y'all know a little bit later.
This money in California. I'm just kidding, but if the average person makes $24,000 a year, then you can be certain that the city has some major issues. The country town of 140,000 residents has a very dark side. Neighborhoods that breed some of the most dangerous people that you will ever come across. This is the real deal. But before we get into it, let me run the intro. Savannah is very similar to many southern cities in the way that the streets work. Unlike the west or east coast, the vast majority of residents are below the poverty line. So the concept of one area being the hood and another being wealthy is something that's not very common. Pretty much everywhere you go has the same things going on. I say that to say that territory is not very important. There's no history of a certain hood having issues with another. For example, maybe someone gets into an
I mean, as of now, yeah, there's neighborhood that beef, I mean, that's really mainly like the younger kids doing that, like people my age, they ain't beefing over neighborhoods, I'm 30 now, so but it's not like how it was like when I was growing up, you know what I'm saying? Like you had beefs with different neighborhoods. I know like Canton Park will always get into it. Tatumville will always get into it. Of course, Fraser Homes, those areas, like, it'll be different beefs, but it's not mainly like we gonna go over to somebody else's neighborhood and fuck some shit up. It ain't like that though.
Argument at school with another person. Then boom, all of a sudden they're both rivals. They could be from the same neighborhood, it doesn't matter. In the South, pretty much everyone is ready for action. Mostly because it's legal to own and walk around with a band machine. And all of this makes for a wild, unpredictable, and chaotic environment where friends turn enemies and the smallest disagreements turn into major beef. And none of that is exemplified more than this first story. Let me introduce you to a man named Jason Johnson, also known as Camouflage. He grew up in the Westlake Projects, one of the worst neighborhoods.
You serious, man? First of all, that's not Westlake Projects. That's actually in this video that's Frazier Holmes, but of course, if you've seen the videos that I've done about Camouflage, he's from HVP, Hitch Village Projects. So I mean, this guy, he's starting off bad already to me. So you 0-1 right now. So, but this is not Westlake. Westlake is on the west side. I used to live around Westlake. It's Westlake, Lamarville, and around the way it's like Tatumville and Liberty City.
Neighborhoods in all of Georgia. But fortunately, by the age of 16, he started to create a buzz down south. His first independent album actually sold 50,000 copies in 2001. And I know that it may not sound like much, but that's insane for a first album. It caught the attention of Lil Boosie and Birdman, who he ended up getting close with. And in 2002, he released a hit song called Cut Friends, and this is when he started to blow. He was officially the first rapper to ever put on for Savannah, Georgia. But just as he was ready to fulfill his role, the streets of Savannah would do what they do. May 19th, 2003, Camouflage goes to the Pure Pain Studios on 37th Street. And after a night of recording, he walks outside the studio and heads to his car. But right there is a man in black. Bam. Directly after the incident, Savannah's police chief Willie
Dorian Orr
Levette came out and made some interesting statements. He pointed out that this could be retribution for incidents that Camouflage was potentially involved in. But after a small investigation, none of that was true. Instead, rumors came out that a girl that he was dealing with had a jealous ex-boyfriend. And whether that exact story is true or not, it's the nature of the streets of Savannah. Also,
I ain't never heard that shit. I never heard this man had a jealous ex-boyfriend. Girl he messing with had a jealous boyfriend. I never heard no shit like that. So I don't know where he get that from. Not explain what happened in that video I did about Camouflage, because in the original video I did about Camouflage, I think the second one or the first one, I titled "So Who Killed Camouflage," and I talked about it, and a lot of people didn't like the fact that I brought that up. You know, who killed them, and the fact that I had that title, because I had it titled differently, but you know, I changed the title of it. But yeah, Dorian Orr did that, allegedly.
So remember the name of the police chief, because that will be important down the line. But anyways, after the passing of Camouflage, the city had a major drought in music. No one notable would come out of the
Find out what your man is up to.
Region for a long time. And that takes me to a young man named Taekwon Bowman. Born in 1999, Taekwon had a rough start in the Westlake Projects. His household was
not Westlake, Hitch Village Projects, and that's not even Westlake Projects in that video. That's Frazier Holmes.
Was chaotic with his parents, and it ended up involving CPS. When a young Taekwon received a serious burn on his skin, they decided that enough was enough. So Taekwon was adopted by his great aunt in the Fred Wessel apartments. However, her living conditions were not much better, and the neighborhood was troubled as well. So after this, he bounced around the city in different foster care homes. This led to a sense of loneliness and abandonment that a child can never get back. And because of this, he became out of control. And it all started at 11 years old. One night at his aunt's house would change his life forever. He got into a scuffle with his cousin and ended up hurting him pretty badly. So his aunt called the police on him and he got 7 days in juvenile. After this introduction to the system, he kept getting in trouble over and over again. At the age of 13, he cut off his ankle monitor and began hitting houses. He consistently did this for a couple of years and was able to scrap together enough money to survive on his own. He spent many nights alone by himself trying to find a couch to crash on. His parents were nowhere to be found and he felt unsure about staying with his great aunt. And just like anyone without a good home, the streets became his first family. And for him, it wasn't a specific neighborhood or block. In order for this to make sense, let's head to 2010. During this time, some of LA's biggest street ballers decided to do business and move out to Georgia, and the majority of them just so happened to be rolling 60s. And over time, as more and more LA guys moved to Georgia, they started to bring their colors with them. The first area to start repping 60s were the south side of Atlanta, technically known as Clayton County or Clayco, and they have steadily grown to thousands of members throughout the area. In fact, many of Atlanta's famous rappers are known to be a
Well, I would say this about what he just said. You know, the Crips ain't been around in Savannah for 10 years. You know, they ain't been around that long. You know, they're relatively a new gang, to be honest with you. Not saying like they just was started, you know, last week or nothing like that. But, you know, they're probably like one of the last gangs that just formed, you know, within the past. I mean, I didn't really like heard of Crips until like 2016. Like after that, you know, then I start hearing a little bit more stuff. But at the same time, you know, a lot of this stuff is just like neighborhood shit. So about how the Crips started in Savannah, I don't know. You know, I've been kind of wanting to ask questions about how did that start. Like, did somebody from out west come out here? I mean, it would make sense. I mean, I don't doubt that happened, but I know niggas in Savannah just wouldn't create Crips like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, niggas in Savannah would make up some set of their own. But, you know, like I said, Crippin' in Savannah is like relatively new, unlike going to Macon. But Macon has always been like a Crip city, honestly. Like, the Crips in Macon are like, they're everywhere.
Part of the 60s. Anyways, through business dealings, the rolling 60s spread to Savannah as well. In fact, they spread to the west and south side areas, both of which Taekwon lived in. And by this time, Taekwon was ready to join the new—
Wait, he said south side? Boy, fucking up, boy.
Group and fully immerse himself in the streets. And for him, it all started in 2014 while he was locked up with a fellow teenager named Quaffy.
That is not Quaffy Murphy. You like 0-3 right now. If y'all guys remember that video that I done a while back, that's Cardell Sneed. And you know, it's like, it's crazy that I remember these people, like the homicide victims, by face. I did a video about that. I mean, he had to see my video to get this picture, but that's not Quaffy Murphy. Quaffy Murphy, I did a video on that on this channel, which has the most views on this channel. I don't know how he mistaked that, but that's Cardell Sneed. If I'm believing, I mean, my memory is pretty tight when I do the homicide. So I know it's been a while since I covered homicides, but I still remember faces and cases. But he died. This guy died on a whole separate situation. And if you want to see the video about Quaffy Murphy, I'll try to put that link in the description. He got killed in a separate situation, not related to Cardell Sneed. This guy died a few years back.
Murray. During this time, they became best friends and had plans to take over Savannah together. But right after they got out, Taekwon was caught with a band machine and was sent right back. And here is where tragedy hits. April 25th, 2014. Quaffy wakes up and decides that he wants to run inside his friend's house and take a tool that he had just purchased. Wow, Quaffy Murphy, what good friend to have. So Coffee runs inside his house and takes what he wants. And when his friend comes home, he realizes what's missing. He knows that something fishy is going on. So he contacts his friends and lets them know what happened. And listen to this, Coffee is brutally honest and says, yeah, it was me who took it. So instantly the friends are on a hunt to go find Coffee and get it back. So the next day, Coffee finds someone who wants to purchase it. However, he knows that there could always be something sketchy going on. So he contacts an older guy from the neighborhood named Alan Moore to roll with him. On the morning of April 26th, they all meet up in Alan knows that there could always be something sketchy going on. So he contacts an older guy from the
Buddy 0-5 right now. Probably 0. He about to be like 0-7 and 71 in a minute. So obviously he had to look at the video that I've done about the situation because he kind of narrating it shortly. What he said was right about Coffee Murphy broke into one of his people that he knew houses to get a gun and steal a gun, and the person called them and he pretty much knew what was up and was trying to get Coffee Murphy set up. Now I did an interview with this guy Alan Moore, and that's the same picture in the interview when I interviewed Alan Moore, aka Juvie. Shout out to him because that interview, it was like that took like a year and a half just to put that in motion. But basically what he said in that video, well, in that interview that I did with him, that was correct. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy. He used my video, so I mean, at least I know he watched me. But the details of it is off. But I mean, narrating it, he at least got that part right.
Neighborhood named Alan Moore to roll with him. On the morning of April 26th, they all meet up in Alan Moore's driveway on 3800 Bull Street. The buyer's name is Norman Kuntz Jr., but more commonly known as Juki, and I don't think that he was there to purchase anything. Bam! Juki ended up getting life, but that did nothing for Taekwon's peace of mind. In fact, it devastated him and only made his heart colder. So when he got out, he knew that he needed a tool. However, shortly after, he was caught with it and sent right back to juvenile for another 2 years. I don't know, let me not judge, maybe the police officers are way better out there, but I've never seen anyone get caught this many times. Regardless, the 2 years changed him for the better and he found a new identity. Quando Rondo was the new name and music was the new career. So literally the day he got out, he recorded freestyles while banging on his car. They went absolutely viral on Instagram and it caught the attention of Atlanta rapper Lil Baby. And this guy just so happened to be connected to Quando through the Rolling 60's. So in January of 2018, they released a hit song called I Remember. And this was the start of a huge mainstream career for Quando. However, many people didn't know about what was going on back home in the streets of Savannah. The Rolling 60's were taking over the streets in the worst way possible, and it all peaked in 2018. By this time, they had expanded to over 100 members and did not have any care for the well-being of their city. And starting in June of 2018,
I don't know if they 100 deep. I might be wrong about saying that, but I don't know if they that deep, bro. Like, yeah, they got a lot of people. I don't know. Maybe he right. I don't know.
they went on possibly the most reckless spree in Georgia history. Let me introduce you to a man named Chantre Grant, also known as Puff. This guy has been a community activist for a long time, preaching peace, unity, and economic development.
Yeah, I don't know if he gonna fuck this one up, but Chantre Grant, he was killed by some members of the Crips because, of course, he won some money on a casino trip, and the girl he was with on the way back was texting the other dude, was trying to line him up, and end up taking his life. Rip to Chantre Grant. He was definitely a good dude, and that was really unfortunate. That was like one of the second stories I heard about the 60s getting active. And it was a really ugly situation. It was just really unfortunate, and it wasn't a whole lot of money. At what really blew my mind. And then y'all was gonna split it between so many people. Like, y'all wouldn't have walked away with no money, but I let it play out.
Development. And to spread his message, he started a group called the Bullhorn Crew, and their mission was to go around Savannah, talk to the youth, and set them on a productive path. And on the side, Chantre also owned a catering business as well as being a DJ on weekend nights. Truly a great representative for Savannah. But unfortunately, the Rolling 60s do not care who you are, and they will use whatever tactics they can to get you. This time they used a woman named Nalante Grant, and here's how it went. June 15th, 2018. Chantre goes to a local casino and wins a whole bunch of money. And of course, he happened to be with Nalante Grant the whole night, who he had just met. So after his lucky night, Nalante starts
Yeah, no relation. Even though they have the same last name, that's no relation to that person. Just a coincidence of last name.
plotting. She contacts Rolling 60's member Dante Dunham to inform him of who she's with. She mentions that he has a lot of winnings, so after some sweet talking, he supposedly mentions to her where he lives. And that's all it takes. She shares the information with Dante and he heads out to the address. And there he waits for Chantre to get home. Unfortunately, this would not end well for him. This incident completely shocked the community because Puff was known as the kindest man ever. He was the type to give the shirt off his back to someone less fortunate. This just goes to show how bad the Rolling 60's truly are. And sadly, the money-hungry crew was not done yet. The next month would be even worse. The 60's got desperate and started seeking out houses to hit, and that takes us to July 23rd, 2018. The Rolling 60's Cordell Richardson finds a house on Waltz Drive that he thinks is unoccupied. However, inside is a 63-year-old grandpa named Eric Cooley.
Covered that video.
Cordell would drive away and assume that he would never get caught, and for the meantime, that was true. 2 days later, apparently Dante Dunham ran out of Chantre's winnings, so he goes looking for money. July 25th, 2018. He drives out to East Bolton Street and finds a house that he thinks is unoccupied. However, in the kitchen is a 26-year-old named Robert Lee Jr. At this point, the Rolling 60's need to be stopped. And just when you thought that the summer couldn't get worse, one last incident would take place. August 5th, 2018. The Rolling 60's Javon Williams gets the drop on arrival from a girl they both know. So he waits for the night until 19-year-old Jernard Burton pulls up to the 900 block of Carter Street. Bang!
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to say too. As far as I know, as far as like them beefing, like the Crips beefing, like they don't like Carver Village. It's a neighborhood on the west side. And I really doubt that he explained it in this video. But from my understanding, the beef with them started with T-Kev. He got killed out there. He got killed by a Crip. That happened several years ago. Might have been 2016, 2017. I did that video years back. But from that situation, I learned that they, Carver Village don't fuck with any type of Crip activity at all. Unless something changed, but
all of this took place within 3 months. 5 people in 3 months in the small city of Savannah, Georgia. Well, it was only a matter of time before this reckless crew would be fully investigated. Savannah police tracked the phone of Nalante Grant and found that she had shared her location with Dante Dunham. From there, they searched his phone and found the rest of the information they needed. And because of this, they also tied Dunham to the loss of our Darren Jefferson in 2013. February 1st, 2019. Operation Third Time's the Charm. And why did they call it that? Well, this was their third attempt on dismantling the Rolling 60's. And this one was successful with 6 life sentences and 4 other terms as well. For a small city like Savannah, this was a major win for the DA and police department.
Well, you gotta think about it. Usually every year, by the middle towards the last quarter of the year they do big investigations slash indictments on just like not even just gang members, but just on like any criminal organization. And they had it coming for a while. They did. There's probably gonna be some more criminal investigations and indictments coming relatively soon.
Somehow, Quando Rondo missed catching any implications in this whole takedown, and honestly, nobody knew about his friends back home. In fact, Quando's career took off alongside NBA YoungBoy, and for that reason, many people thought that he was from Baton Rouge. That's how little was known about Savannah, Georgia, but all of that would change in 2020. This is when Quando Rondo and YoungBoy began exchanging words online with King Von. And for those who don't know, this guy was known as Chicago's most feared man. So the internet went back and forth between the Savannah Rolling 60's and Chicago's O Block. And it got to the point where King Von would even threaten to put hands on Quando Rondo. Little did he know the Savannah Rolling 60's are not people you want to mess with. And here is where the internet erupted. You know, because I guess if you're from Chicago, then you have to be dangerous. And at the same time, everyone was downplaying the country boys of East Georgia. That takes us to November 6, 2020. At this time, King Von, Lil Durk, and the whole OTF are living in Atlanta. And on the night of November 6th, they get word of Quando Rondo being at a local club. Most of the OTF guys leave it alone, but King Von is all about his business. So he gets up in the middle of the night and heads down to the location. He waits for Quando Rondo to leave the club. So Quando walks to the parking lot, and right there is King Von. Back. King Von completely manhandles him like a child. Quando's right-hand man, Lil...
Yeah. I mean, he was right about that one. So, yeah, Quando, I don't expect for him to have hella hands. And, you know, not to make fun of him, because I know he just went through something tragic that could have took his life. But we all seen the situation. I mean, that was a real unfortunate situation. But, you know, one of my friends is a cop, and what he was explaining to me is that, you know, that's self-defense, straight line, you know, right down the middle. You know, that's self-defense. So, if it goes to trial, I don't see Lil Tim facing a murder charge. The worst would be illegal possession of a firearm, because he was locked up before that situation happened. If he would stayed locked up, he wouldn't even killed King Von, to be honest with you, because I did a video about Lil Tim, him when he had got locked up with Tim Quarterman and on like some drug charges, like some heavy shit, some drugs, money, shit like that. But if they would have kept him locked up, King Von wouldn't have been killed. You know, that's just my synopsis of it.
Lil Tim notices what's happening and sprints over to help, and he decides to take it to a whole nother level. Bam! This incident truly showed one thing to the world. It's not about where you're from, it's about how you come. Whoever has the upper hand in any situation will most likely win. So you can play all the games about which city is the hardest, but in all honesty, none of that matters. King Von was feared because of everything he did in Chicago, but in Georgia, none of that matters. They do not care about your city, plain and simple. So for anyone who tries to build their credibility in their city, just know that it's an illusion and it only matters in your city. Once you leave, or the people in your city leave, you're left with zero accomplishments and no one cares about your tough guy past. Well, after this, the internet trolls have been telling Durk to slide for Von. But let's be honest, all of that is unrealistic given his status. But that being said, you need to stop acting tough in your songs if your actions don't back it up. Because at that point, you're spreading a false...
Okay, I'm done listening to this shit, to be honest with you. You know, a lot of his information was... I wouldn't say he lied intentionally. You know, of course, this guy is not from Savannah, or else he wouldn't have known what was going on. But yeah, a lot of errors in this video. You know, of course, Camouflage wasn't from Westlake. Of course, the Crips, they beef with Carver Village, from my understanding, unless if something changed, unless if they just doing some other shit. And it's a lot of stuff that he got wrong. I mean, at least I know he watched my videos. But yeah, I mean, if somebody's looking at his channel thinking this is 100% accurate, then I advise you to watch my channel. And don't worry, I'm not going anywhere for a while. So I had to take some time off. It was something I had to deal with. I'll let y'all know about that a little bit later on. But yeah, man, if y'all want to know about Savannah and stuff like that, stay tuned to this channel. I got a whole bunch of content I'm gonna upload this whole week, man. There's a lot of stuff I gotta keep y'all up to date on, gotta let y'all be informed on, because there's a lot that y'all miss. So hang around to the next video. Take care of yourself, Seaport.